Welcome to Astrodology, the podcast that brings you knowledge, wisdom, and principles that can help you find the peace and comfort we all seek and deserve in our lives. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Astrodology with Astrid. I really sincerely hope you're doing well. It's always a pleasure to come on here and talk about all the things that I love and care about. Astrodology, the name came about from my dear friend Euron Nicholson. I'm the type of person, I know a little bit about a lot of subjects. And in thinking about my life, this came from three main sources. Number one, I read a lot as a child, and all through my life, reading and trying to understand things and concepts, not only in college, but just loving read and the power of the word. Number two, I've always been curious and I've studied human nature. One of my favorite things to do is to people watch and just watch people's physical actions and behavior. You learn a lot from watching people, and then I listen to what people say. Sometimes I'm guilty of taking people's word verbatim, but because I respect the power of the word so much, I feel like you don't get to just say flippant things without actually meaning them. And if you are doing that, it's something that needs to be corrected. Just my humble opinion. And number three is, I think I've always been intuitive. I don't know what the term would be, but I naturally kind of understand concepts quickly and easily when it comes to philosophical things in life, if that makes sense. So I think that's what my interest in knowledge. I guess there's number four because I love meeting new people. I love meeting people from different countries, different backgrounds. I love human stories about people's lives. I'm genuinely interested in people and the plights and the joys and the highs and lows that people go through in life. And that gives me a lot of information. If you take time to talk to people, you learn a lot about things about yourself, but all about the world. So I'm here to talk about what Venus in retrograde means. Being Miss Astrology, Venus in retrograde is a big darn deal, and hopefully by the end of this episode you will agree that it is important to pay attention to Venus in retrograde. So people ask, what does retrograde mean? It means that a planet starts, instead of orbiting and moving forward motion, it literally stalls and it appears to be moving backwards, but it's moving so slow, it's kind of stalled and paused in the atmosphere. So when you talk about planets, we're talking about astronomy. So this isn't just about astrological cycle babble. We're going to also talk about astrology and astronomy and this beautiful planet called Venus. So Venus retrograde happens every 18 months, and it moves through the zodiac in a perfect 8-year cycle. So that means the last time that Venus was in retrograde in the same signs of Aries and Pisces was in 2017. And whenever these two planets come together, these two energies, these zodiac signs, it's about healing the same spaces of ourselves, because Aries is about the self. Aries is the first sign. It's about number one, numero uno. It's about ourselves and our lives. And Pisces, being a planet of healing, helps us to do this. So from March 1st through Saturday, April 12th, Venus will be in retrograde. So I don't know if you've already felt it, but I have. And not in a negative way. Venus has really caused me to look at how I love, what I love, and who I want to love as I go forward in my life. So look back into 2017, March and April of 2017. What was coming to life in your desires? Where were you? I distinctively know 2017 was a huge pivotal year in my life. So think about what you were going through in 2017. because 2017, whenever Venus retrogrades, it's also about the closure of past chapters, closures of our past selves. But then when Venus retrograde is over, it helps us to breathe new life as we go forward in life. So 2017, as I look back, was a pivotal moment in my life. Now, your Venus placement in your zodiac chart, where Venus was located, the exact date and time of your birth, it will tell you the way you love, what you value, and what you really crave and desire in your life. So again, based on what your Venus is, so to me, Venus and Mars. So Mars is once you get into a relationship. If you know where your Mars is, you can see. So if your Mars is in Capricorn, you're going to be the type in a relationship to be very grounded, very methodical. And then Venus represents how you love, how you attract. So when you're meeting that person and you're dating them or you're getting introduced to them, that is where your Venus comes through. So if your Venus is in Leo and you're meeting someone and dating and you're just out in life, you have that more flirtatious, fun, gregarious side of you coming through. So Venus is how we love and how we attract. Okay, as an archetype, Venus represents and is concerned with love, intimacy, partnership, connection, desires, beauty, friendship. Venus is also an abundance planet. A lot of people don't know that. But Venus is what attracts you, what makes you choose the art that you're interested in, what makes you the type of romantic partner you are, what kind of things bring you pleasure. And it's also about how we value ourselves. It's how we value our money. It's how we value where we live. It's how we value concepts. And it's also how we value others. So in astrology, Venus represents, it's the third brightest star in the sky after the sun and the moon. So most nights you can look up and that bright twinkling star usually is Venus. And it is said that as human beings, we've been tracking Venus's practice or motion for centuries. So Venus looks like a glowing little oasis. And the crazy thing about Venus, the planet of love, beauty, friendship, etc., Venus, the planet itself, is actually one of the hottest and most inhospitable planets on our side of the solar system. So it's kind of funny that in astrology, it represents all this idealization, but then it's one of the most intense planets. But Venus is truly beautiful. I love the idea about Venus. Astrologically, Venus again reveals how we romanticize and the fantasies we have about love and attraction. And Venus, this is my favorite statement of all, Venus doesn't represent what we need. Venus reveals what we want. And I think where we suffer with Venusian energy in our lives is that we really don't want to reveal what we truly, truly want. The image of the Venus archetype is perfect. That she's kind of like a goddess, kind of like Cleopatra, wanting to be bathed and doted on. So Venus, again, is considered a personal planet. Each of the planets have their jobs and roles, but Venus is considered to be connected to our humanness because it is said that the energy of Venus impacts our life on a daily basis. And this planet's influence is indeed something that we can sink into. Because based on the zodiac sign, Venus is occupying the sky, we move to different phases of this Venusian expressions, and we switch up our stylistic choices because Venus also governs fashion and the relationship dynamics. Also, like I said, personal confidence, and it depends on where Venus is in your chart. And it takes approximately 225 days to cross the entire zodiac, again, which means we go through a full Venus journey on an annual basis. However, every other year, like I said earlier, 18 months, Venus will go into retrograde for 40 days and 40 nights. Yes, this is a very religious connotation. Venus retrograde is said to always begin with tests and trials, but it concludes with renewal and revitalization. So that's why I said, wow, Venus has done a doozy on me. When it first came out, I just was reviewing and refreshing hurt and heartbreak and past relationships, which is normal during Venus retrograde. We're invited to go through a metamorphosis, to reassess our standards and our expectations. You know, we are riddled as human beings with flaws and foibles. So someone that we meet will also have them. But it's getting to the point where's your threshold? We're going to have to accept some nuances and some differences in people that we're with. So the idea is, what is your threshold? What is your tolerance level? What are you willing to make concessions on? And what are your non-negotiables? So while Venus is in retrograde, the themes that are highlighted is we're asked to review, witness, reframe, revisit, heal, and renew. Review, re-witness, reframe, revisit, and heal to get to that renewal. So during the 6 weeks of the Venus retrograde, we're asked to go into our heart and look within all the spaces, all of those that where we felt loved, where we felt unloved, where we felt nurtured, where we felt neglected, all of the energies of the heart. We might find ourselves a little bit more sensitive in our relationships dynamics during this Venus retrograde. But Venus also is there to hold a space for a judgment-free exploration of whether or not our needs are being met within our current relationships with others and also with ourselves. Venus retrograde is an invitation to clarify our own needs and again, review what we truly value and desire in our lives. Sometimes I find with Venus retrograde, what it does is as we're reflecting on relationships, it's not about pointing the one finger forward, but the three fingers back. It's like a mirror. And if you really want to heal and shift, you're really going to own and have that mirror up. What did I do to participate in the demise of the relationship? And vice versa. What do I do to participate in the up-leveling and the growth of the relationship? So Venus in retrograde will hold that mirror up to reflect how our present reflects our past. Are we bringing the stories from the past that began years ago? Are we holding our newest partner hostage because in the past, your former relationships, they did this and they did that? So are we not giving them a fair, open chance to show up as they are? What experience from the past are influencing your present? So are we having this underlying expectation or waiting for the, oh, I knew it moment, or I told you so? These are things that we bring into relationships. So what patterns around love, intimacy, worthiness, or beauty are you ready to witness, heal, and rewrite? So spring is just around the corner. So we've got these brighter, more warmer days starting to help us feel healed and starting to really go after our dreams because March begins spring. We begin the new astrological new year. So again, Venus oversees even art, money, values, pleasure. So it's how we're going to relate to ourselves and others. So when we think about relationships, you want to think about the relationship that you have with yourself. Oftentimes people are so worried about what someone else is doing, especially in a relationship. It's like someone calls you out for something you're not doing. To clap back is like, oh, well, you're not doing it either. That gets you nowhere because the idea is we're supposed to be receptive to feedback, and we can only express to how it's affecting us. So someone can say, I didn't make you feel that way. No one gets to tell us how they made us feel. So In 2025, this year, as Venus goes backwards through Aries, so retrograding in Aries. Aries is considered the go-getter, the fire sign, that immature energy, that go-getter, and that innocent cardinal fire. And Pisces is then the heartfelt, empathetic, and psychic mutable water sign. So when Venus moves forward in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, Mars is the planet of action, the planet of the number one. Also the ram. The ram can have a very, very short fuse. So being the ram and a fire sign, sometimes Aries is known to leap before they look. It's also a trailblazer sign. So Aries is a trailblazer. So Venus in Aries could lead to a bold makeover, an internal makeover or an external makeover. But when Venus moves backward in Aries, the driven, all system go tone of this fire sign will conflict with the message of a retrograde. So a retrograde is a cosmic step back. It's a cosmic pause. It's asking us to take a breath, to slow down. So this can be a conflict when Aries is the sign that Venus is retrograde in. So the idea is that during this time you can take a step back to better understand how you're experiencing the love that you have for yourself, your own independence, your confidence, and your drive within your own heart and mind. When Venus moves forward in Pisces, also co-ruled by Neptune and lucky Jupiter, it's one of the most powerful positions known as exaltation. This means the planet is able to function at its highest power in the sign of Pisces. So Venus is exalted in Pisces. So when Venus comes out of retrograde into Pisces, you can be more in tune with your own needs, your commitments, and your healing and your emotional availability. When Venus is retrograde in Pisces, this idealism can lead to confusion, haziness, or distortion tied to how you're thinking and showing up within your relationships. So this Venus, Aries energy, this Pisces, so you've got water and fire. So I can't help think that Pisces is in kind of a tug of war with Aries, trying to put out the fire. But Aries is strong, and so Aries is going to fight for the fire that it wants to create. So several steps backward. So all backward steps aren't necessarily a negative thing. Venus retrograde will overlap with the big OG of Mercury retrograde. So a very intense time. So on March 15th through April 7th, Mercury it's almost like going back to the drawing board, because now Mercury jumps in the game with Venus. But again, if you really understand a retrograde, think of it as a pause, a cosmic pause, to take a step back, to slow down and to reassess. So some people are very strict during retrogrades. They don't buy a new car, they don't sign any contracts, they don't make any major deals, no surgery. Especially with Venus in retrograde, it is considered the worst time to do any kind of major dental work, any kind of major cosmetic surgeries. Obviously, we have to live life, but where possible, we don't do any elective surgeries, so to speak. So retrograde is a time, if you really follow it, to just bring a little bit more, be more strategic. So it is a time to just get ducks lined up in a row, because the theory is you're not going to be able to move fast forward anyway. So you see people just push against the current. So we want to flow down the river with the current. We don't want to push against it. So see the retrogrades as a time to be more reflective, and then maybe go into your deep well of planning. So the first eclipse of the year also happens during Venus retrograde. So we've got Mercury retrograde and we've got the eclipse all happening under Venus retrograde. So which means we could be on the precipice of a shocking change that's meant to push us into the next chapter of a certain area of our lives. And what that will be, we do not know. So around March 13th through 14th, depending on your time zone and where you are, this eclipse, this lunar eclipse in Virgo, could bring up themes of health, wellness, empathy, and self-care, because that is what Virgo is concerned with. And then on the 29th, the solar eclipse in Aries, again, there's Aries on deck, will encourage you to connect with your inner CEO. Aries is a sign of the leadership, the trailblazer, and it's even going to strengthen your sense of self. So these first few weeks, we're going to feel the fiery energy of Aries to reflect on, again, how we value ourselves. It's at the time like, I am the S. Aries is courageous, it's passion, it's independence, and its moves are based on its own instincts. This is what I love about Aries. Aries will leap in the direction of their own desired map. Aries is here to assert its energy in movement and creation, and it paves its own path, walking in the direction that is truly, truly true to its heart. So as Venus brings reflection through the lens of this sign, we will review our own expression of Aries, that fire that lives within us. Do we live in a way that respects our own desires, our own creativity, our own intuition? Are we doing that? So then as Venus spins backwards in Pisces, the final sign of the zodiac, this retrograde becomes more subtle, emotional, and introspective. Pisces is about surrendering to the divine. It's about your own sacredness. It's about your own sensitivity and your own intuition. Pisces, Venus in Pisces retrograde is our spiritual practice. It's how we feel the sacredness within our own lives and with Source. So as Venus goes through the Piscean waters, naturally past hurts, patterns, and emotions relating to everything about Venus, our worthiness, love, relationships, passion, pleasures, and beauty. This is a time to welcome forgiveness in your heart for yourself and for others. So when Venus retrograde is complete in this final weeks in Pisces, it's about the medicine of compassion as we welcome more of it into our own lives. So when we have compassion for ourselves, we're able to see it in others. So during this time, it's a great time during Venus in retrograde that we remember not just with our minds, because the mind, they're saying that our minds aren't the only thinking vessel in the body, it's the heart. But we want to think with our whole being. Pisces is water. We're made of 60 to 78% water, depending on who you are. But Pisces energy is sonic. It's going inside and kind of drowning out the noise of the outside world and really trusting in your instincts, your own desires, and what you really want. So again, Pisces, or this Venus retrograde, is not about what you value. It's about what you want. And Aries is going to help you light the fire under that. And then Piscean energy is going to give you the, the sacredness and the, intellect. Because Pisces is very, very cerebral to move forward in the way that truly, truly matches your soul's heart, deep felt urgings. So that's it. I just couldn't let this time go by with talking about this retrograde in Pisces and Aries. It's such a powerful time, because again, Venus matching Aries is one of the hottest planets out there. And yet, Venus, the planet, is here not to represent what we need, but Venus helps to reveal what we want. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Astrology with Astrid. Thank you so much. Happy retrograde in Venus. Join me in the next episode when I talk about the full moon. The full moon will be on March 12th. We have a full moon coming in. We have the full moon in Virgo coming in on the 14th, actually, with the lunar eclipse, Mercury retrograde. I'll talk about all of that in one of my next episodes. But until then, take good care of yourself. Love, 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 love really, truly is the answer. And it starts with the love that you have for yourself. Namaste, everybody. Thank you for listening to Astrodology. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help support the podcast, please hit the subscribe button and tell your friends about it by sharing this program on social media. You can also follow me on Instagram at Coda Life Goddess or at codalife.com. Coda is C-O-T-A, Coda Life Goddess or codalife.com. Thank you again for listening to Astrodology, and I'll see you next time.